For more than a decade, the familiar sound of that banjo during the WBOC News at 6 has only meant one thing. It's time to travel with Charlie.
Yeah, several times a week, Charles Paparella brings the stories of Delmarva alive and into our living rooms. You know, one day he may be telling us about a local church hymn sing. The other may feature a local artisan. And sometimes Charlie just sits back and lets nature tell the story. But I wondered, has anyone ever told his story? Well, today we do, because we consider Charlie a Delmarva treasure.
Watch your step.
The best way to get to know Charlie is to go traveling with him.
That's my buddy.
Everybody's your buddy. And for nearly 10 years, that's what Charlie and I did as a news team for WBOC. I learned a lot about my friend's journey here on Delmarva.
How in the world did you end up on Delmarva? Because a lot of people don't know you're not from here.
I was born in Paw Paw, Michigan. Let's hear it for Paw Paw, you Paw Paw people out there.
Charlie's father was a food scientist. In fact, Charlie says we can thank his pop for inventing the process that Welch's uses to make their famous grape juice.
He touched your life, Delmarva, whether you know it or not. If you've ever enjoyed a cold glass of grape juice, you can thank my pop. Because he invented, when we were kids, we thought my father invented grape juice, but yeah, he didn't. He just perfected it so that Welch's could use it to make wonderful grape juice.
Charlie says after many years of industry, his father decided to take a job with the University of Maryland in their food sciences estuary program in Crisfield.
So we moved to a beautiful hamlet called Marion Station, Maryland. It's quite a culture shock moving there. But I was 14 years old, which is 50 years ago. This was our house when we moved here.
Oh, wow.
And my room was right up there on the right. And the house was wonderful. It was a wonderful place to live.
Even so, Charlie says he tried to escape Delmarva on a couple of different occasions.
I was going to be the next Bob Dylan, but that job had been taken by so many people that the line was simply too long for me to wait. I did go to New York and recorded an album back in the early 70s. It did not sell.
No. Music was a big part of Charlie's early life growing up in Somerset County.
When I was 10 years old, I asked my parents for a guitar, and they got me one. It was a classical Spanish guitar.
Not only did Charlie teach himself to play guitar, he took advantage of a church across the street to further his musical talent.
In those days, people didn't lock churches because people didn't deface them. I would go in the basement of the church, and they had a piano there, and I'd play that piano and taught myself a piano.
Charlie did spend some time studying at UMES.
I majored in every different program that I could find and never graduated, never felt any need to.
Worked as a printer's devil for the Somerset Herald.
The newspaper was a print newspaper that we printed every week on Wednesday nights, and it was a letterpress newspaper. So it was set by hand and by linotype, and my job was to melt lead every day for 5 days a week for the linotype machine.
He spent several years working for Somerset County Schools in computer programming, but it was when Charlie was offered a job as a television photographer that he knew he found his true calling. That's when he got the opportunity to work with a Delmarva legend, Scorchy Taws.
So for 6 years or so, I was Scorchy Taws' driver and photographer, and he would sit right where you're sitting, and we would laugh all day long. He would sit in the seat with a notepad, a yellow legal pad, and he'd write the story, and then he would read it to me as close as you are to me. And, you know, everybody knows what a unique and wonderful voice Scorchy had.
Radiant, good and gushing. Such is not the case with Trav.
And to hear that voice right next to me was just wonderful.
And Charlie says that experience went a long way toward what he's doing today.
But can I tell you who really taught me what I need to know about this job? My mom and dad. My mom was a teacher, my dad was a scientist.
Charlie also credits what he learned here.
My high school teacher at Crisfield High School was a beautiful lady named Hope Cullen. And she kept me after class in the very first part of the first year I had her and said, you're a writer. You are a writer. You have an ability to use language, and she inspired me to take it seriously. And I always will owe a debt of gratitude to her.
And I feel we owe a debt of gratitude to Charlie for making all these trips, But he won't listen.
The thing I learned from Scorchy that was so important is, you know, just to always remember that you're not important. You're not the story. It's the people you talk to, the places you go, the things you see. And that takes the pressure off of you because you're not the story.
So, how does Charlie come up with all of the story ideas? He says they come up with him. He gets a lot of emails and phone calls, people making suggestions, but he says his #1 weapon, his wife, Becky. Charlie says sometimes he gets story ideas he's not too keen on. She'll tell him he should do them. And then he says every single time he goes and does the story, it turns out to be the best story ever.
She's right.
She is
She's always
a
right.
weapon. Well, you know what else is the best ever? Enjoying a locally brewed beer at a locally owned brewery right here on Delmarva. Up next, we hear the story of Burley Oak, how one man took an interesting hobby and turned it into his life's work.
Well, maybe you're going to be enjoying some good drinks and some good food and hopefully a good game this Sunday. Today, we learned how to make a delicious chili the entire family will love. Delmarva Live will be right back.